Okay. I hope I'm live, because if I'm not, I'm just recording for shits and giggles. The title of this video is going to be called The Curse of Knowledge. And the reason why I'm talking about this right now is that when I was growing up as a young black boy, all of my contemporaries were, most of the people around me, adults and otherwise, didn't really enforce knowledge. We were made to go to school and to get education, and we were made to answer questions and pass tests. But the ability to synthesize information to come up with new revolutionary or um, change worthy ideas was a little bit lacking. We were taught to follow the leader, go with the flow, do what we're told. And then over the years, we have to then learn where not to follow the rules, and where not to follow the leader, and where not to go where other people have gone. Part of adulthood for us, myself included, was unindoctrinating myself, or de-indoctrinating myself, whatever the right word is, in order to discover who I am and discover what drives me, what passions I care about, what values I have, and so on. Before I go into a little bit of the detail about what the curse of knowledge is and how I've got to this point where I'm a little bit frustrated for being intelligent, smart, and for being curious in general, I would like to share why I'm sharing this in the first place. If you look out in the world right now, you see pain, torment, and you see bad things. And a lot of us, we want to hide ourselves from those things, and we want to be happy. We want to take care of our families. We just wish that the world was peaceful. Now, over the last few days, I've shared information to people who deliberately asked it, and some of these people are very close friends of mine. I want to quickly say that this is not a video in response to them. I'm merely just going over a series of conversations that have been had recently, and where I stand with that personally, and how I'm taking that. On multitude of occasions, I've had conversations with people who ask me questions about things that happen in the world, and I provide my answers, but then they're shocked by the answer I provide, because I guess they're shocked about my perspective. But so in this video, I'd like to highlight a little bit about my perspective and how I've come to some of the conclusions I have. And also I want to talk about why that's a problem. Now, the reason why I call this the curse of knowledge is because I think most people are happy in their ignorance. I have very close friends that I'm very close with, and I am not saying anything negative about them at all, but a multitude of them have very fundamentally different ideas of the world, and have a very fundamentally different idea of what is appropriate knowledge, what is appropriate to share. And that is because when people are faced with information that is uncomfortable, that challenges what they were taught or what they're told, or even when that information could cause anxiety or fear, they are uncomfortable with that. And I respect that, and I appreciate that level of honesty from my close friends. I had once, a few months ago, no, maybe this was a couple years ago, I had a friend that said, Teddy, I know I just asked you this question, but I don't want you to tell me, because if you tell me this answer, then I have to change and I have to deal with knowing this. And I said, Roger that. And in another situation, somebody asked me a question and I told them, but then they're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And in another situation very recently, actually here at my office, I was having a conversation with somebody, and and I'm able to challenge their basic representation of the truth and what that means, and even some of their religious tenets. One thing that I have to tell you guys about me is that if you put me in a room of 100 people, I would be the most disagreeable person. The reason for that is I don't take anything at face value, because over the years, from being a young black boy till now, I've learned that everything that we are ever told is a lie. Everything I thought about religion is a lie. Everything I thought I knew about our country is a lie. Everything I thought about history is a lie. Everything I thought about the Middle East or North Africa or serving in the military or anything was a lie. Everything that I've experienced has had a grain of a lie involved in it. And all of those lies come from a culture that denies basic truth and denies basic reality. Like, we are not living according to the values that we are supposed to be. that we promote, that we share, that we encourage other people to live by. Therefore, I see the whole country as a country full of hypocrites. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing to be a country full of hypocrites if that's what people want to do. But what I'm saying is it's very difficult to hear people say with their mouths one thing and live another way. And this has caused me a lot of issues and curiosity and research. Behind me, not only will you see the picture of my beautiful mom, who allowed me to be this way growing up, but you will also notice that there's a series of books and pictures here. This is a picture of my son. If I feel like I would be doing him an incredible disservice if I didn't prepare him for a future that is true and is coming. All of these books here, Understanding the Contemporary Middle East, that was my degree. Strategic Planning, my career. Worry of Delight, my personal philosophy and how I approach life. Art of War, my career. The Framers' Coup, all about the forming of the United States and how we created our revolution, all about our history. Post-traumatic slave syndrome, all about how Black people in our country act and interact and how we treat ourselves and how our subculture is basically created by slavery and how that is and how our culture and the way that we act is detrimental to ourselves and to the rest of the world. And then over here, we have books about unity and multiculturalism, 5 levels of leadership, Black awakening, capitalist America. We have a book by Paulo Coelho that's all about love and recognizing love and identifying with love. What you will see continuously from me is a series of intense curiosity around the concept of love, war, strategy, community, and all these things, all about, for me, all about making the world a little bit of a better place. I dedicated my life to this, as a matter of fact. So for the last 20 years, my background has been in, Middle East and North Africa, studying at the University of George Mason, get my degree in global affairs, which is the focus of international relations as it relates to globalization, which is the exportation of American cultural and economic hegemony on the world and the effects of the people around the world. Not necessarily in a bad way, but also not necessarily in a good way. Neutral. Globalization, focusing on the Middle East and North Africa. So the things that are happening in Israel, Palestine, the things that are happening in Jordan, Lebanon, the things that are happening in the Middle East, not only am I familiar with the history and the religion and the context, but also I feel that is one of the most important topics that you could possibly talk about in the world today. But also, I served in the U.S. military, and my background's in national security with the weapons of mass destruction, so chem bio response, weapons of mass destruction consulting and response, and then ultimately strategic planning for emergency management, which ultimately led me to being a master trainer and a training strategist or learning strategist in a variety of fields. My personal interest is in religion and philosophy, and also my direct personal interest is on becoming my best version of myself. When I was a kid in Mr. Nutter's high school, in high school, I was in Mr. Nutter's history class. And when I was in the history class, I learned a ton about our history, but that was where it was awoken inside of me that I needed to become something bigger, something better, and that I actually had a future worth living for if I could find a way to leverage my knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences to improve the world just a little bit. But with that came this desire to be a Renaissance man, to be good at multiple things, to be a master, to understand what mastery is, which is one of the books over there by Robert Greene called Mastery. In order to become a master at anything, you have to understand the path to mastery, which is how I became a learning strategist and an expert in that space so that I could become a master in multiple spaces. And then the last thing I would say is that recently I've learned this idea that the synthesizing mind, the mind of a person who's able to go out and reach out and learn and become a master of different things, but bringing all these things together to create unique opportunities and unique solutions to problems. So that's where I put myself in. I wouldn't say I'm a master at that. I'd say I'm working towards that, as anybody who is dedicated to a craft or an idea should be. And I'm 40 now. So not only do I not have that burden, I don't have the burden of youth or the exuberance of youth. I've already experienced life. I'm not 30 either. I'm not in a transition period. I'm fully middle-aged now. So at middle age, I thought that by this time that I would be able to share this knowledge and that there would be curious people in the world. And it seems that by and large, there are curious people in the world. However, those curious people are oftentimes called conspiracy theorists and other things. When it just so happens that all of those conspiracy theories that people have been talking about seem to come true. So, seem to be true. So, what's happening now is I catch myself saying things that other people find shocking and riveting, but me, I just know are just natural everyday language and knowledge that I just discovered in books that are just written, and then I just put it all together and package it and deliver it. Here's why I'm expressing this frustration here. It is difficult to know information and not have a means of executing on ideas or plans and feeling like there's nobody to talk to. If I were to, I'm talking to you right now, but the only way that I can actually say with my mouth all the things that I want is because I don't know who's on the other side of that camera and I don't need to know in order to deliver. But also, I need to make sure that it's being delivered and packaged in a way that is easy to understand and actually shows the authority that I have in a space and gives the person the ability to learn something from it. As a learning strategist, that's my job. Packaging information that may be complicated and difficult so that somebody can learn, so that they can enjoy their path to mastery, personal development, and world improvement. Overall, that's what I live for, other than serving God. That's the way I serve God, I believe. So the challenge that I'm faced with, and which is the primary and the first curse that I'm contending with, is no audience, no friends, nobody to talk to about things that I think are extremely important. Things that I think that if people knew, they would automatically improve their condition and the world that they live in. So, oh man. So it's difficult to share these. It's difficult to have this stuff inside of me because it's festering and bubbling and it needs to come out. But even when I want to share it with the very closest people to me, they don't have an ear for it. So I either have to, one, change my environment and change my friends or change the way that I operate, or two, I have to hide myself and limit myself and share nothing of the things that I care about and I find important. It's really weird that we live in a country where we will say that we value life and liberty and love and peace and security and all these things, while at the same time contributing tacitly or knowingly, purposely or unconsciously, towards the destruction of everything that we say that we believe in. And this is actively happening in our world. But the challenge is if you go and you tell your average American these things are happening, they don't want to hear it. And then if I say, well, if they say, well, how do you know this? I have answers. I have books. I have experience. I've lived in these places. I can explain it all with great detail. But it sounds like a fucking fairy tale to so many people, which is super confusing to me because it's obvious knowledge for me. The reason why this is the reason I feel like I'm complaining about not having somebody to talk to, but it's bigger than that, guys. It's bigger than that. It's it's seeing things that are so obvious to millions of people, but I'm surrounded by thousands or hundreds of people that could care less, and it's strange. If you guys knew the risk that we are facing in our country, if you knew about the cybersecurity risk, the chem bio risk, the risk of EMP, the risk of war, the risk of everything that's happening and how close, and all of the things that we are preparing for in all of my professional life and career, we're preparing for this exact time frame in history. All of the dreams that we had of all the things, bad things that are happening, and all the things that Christians are thinking are going to happen to at the end of the world, and all the things that Muslims and all the things that the Jewish people think are going to happen in the world, they're happening. But unless you understand what those religious people are saying, unless you understand geopolitics, unless you understand the world at war, unless you understand the history of these places, unless you understand the conflicts, unless you understand the history and how these things have already happened before, we're just replaying a certain time frame in history that wasn't that long ago. If you don't have a knowledge of this, what's going to come, what's coming for us and what's happening to us or what will happen to us and our children in the very near future, you will not be able to respond to it because you will be unaware of the actual threat. So there's a quote by James Baldwin that says, basically it boils down to, if I love you, I've got to show you things. I got to make conscious the unconscious. Like it's the if you truly love someone, if you truly love your country, if you truly love the people that you're surrounding, if you truly love your fellow man, if there's something that is either about to destroy your fellow man and your fellow brother, your sister, your community, or if there was something that was coming for them, you would want to let them know. The problem is that so many of us have heard that the sky is falling and it hasn't fallen yet, that we are doubtful that it's going to happen. But see, here's the deal. The people that are telling you these days that the sky are falling, I wasn't saying this before. I've been saying the same message consistently over 10 years. Hey guys, it's going to progressively get worse. And we're at that progressively worse area. We're at that point. So it's very difficult for me to be privy to people that are willing to. It's very difficult for me to understand why people would want to keep their head in the sand. But at the same time, I understand ignorance is bliss until it's not. Ignorance of the world is okay until it's not. Ignorance of your own weakness and ignorance of the evil that is surrounding you and that is destroying your country and sucking it dry. It's obvious, but it's also, I guess it could be a blessing to just be ignorant to it. But see, for me, I don't have that blessing. I don't have the blessing of just sitting around thinking that everything is going to be okay because I know for sure it's not. I know for sure it's not. There is no outcome. There's no path that leads to everything going back to normal because there's no such thing as normal anymore. Ever since COVID, by the way, part of my career, Kim Bio response, right? And emergency preparation, like I was part of those conversations. I worked at some of these organizations that were very influential in these things, which I don't want to talk about. But after COVID, anybody that thought things were going to go back to the same, delusional. And then the progression of everything that's happened till now, it's insane. So that's that knowledge, the knowledge of knowing these things is a curse for me. It's limiting. It's super frustrating. It causes me to feel separated from people who I love and who I admire and trust. It's extremely disheartening to know that the country and the people that I love have their heads so far in the sand or stuck up their own asses that they're not listening to, they're literally not hearing the alarm bells go off in every single realm of their reality. Like when we have, and I don't want to keep talking about negative things, and that's the problem, is I don't want to talk about sex trafficking and it being real. I don't want to talk about drug use and how the government has literally pumped Afghanistan's opium into our pharmaceutical industry and got most of our country addicted. I don't want to talk about how we're going to wars for bad reasons. I don't want to talk about the slaying of children and innocents. I don't want to talk about the forced manipulation of various countries around the world by our own government. I don't want to talk about how we are failing as a state, that we are teetering on the brink of civil unrest and possibly civil war after this election. I don't want to talk about the failing of our economy and the multiple trillions of dollars that we owe to no one. I don't want to talk about the corruption within our government and all of our federal agencies. I don't want to talk about any of these things. I don't want to talk about the EMP threat of EMP and cybersecurity attacks and chem bio attacks and just general war. I don't want to talk about the strategies that could take our country out in a year. But there are movies about all of these things. But it's not entertainment. It's not entertainment, people. So it's a curse to know that things are real and really happening and shit is falling apart. It would be like being in a fire in a kitchen and it's burning down and everybody around you is celebrating and acting like everything is okay, like going about their random business, like making a hot dog in a fire, or they're taking their kids out to play outside as their houses are burning down. This is an active thing that is happening, and I hope that I'm not being too dramatic about it, because I'm not a dramatic person. I'm not being dramatic. It's real. It's not a fake thing. So it's a curse to know these things and to be able to share these things and be able to see these things and to do it from a place of knowledge and to do it from a place of preparation, but not having anybody to talk to about it, not having anybody in my community that gives a crap. There are things that we could be doing right now in every city across America that we are not doing. And it's very simple things. It's called emergency management and emergency preparation. People getting education about the risk, knowing what to do, stockpiling it. All of our tax money could go towards stockpiling things for a rainy day. There's a story of, and forgive me if I'm talking fast, guys. This is how I do. There, especially when I'm feeling passionate about something. There's a story of an ancient Israelite named Joseph going into Egypt and after being locked up as a captive and a slave and being imprisoned. There's a story of this man coming out and saving Egypt from a famine of 7 years because he was able to interpret a dream. This was a wise person during a time of ignorance, able to deliver a message that people heard and started preparing for. There's history in the Bible, as well as the Quran, as well as the Torah, of a man named Jonah who was able to go back to his people and warn them of great calamity coming to go back to the people of Nineveh to warn them of a great calamity that's coming to them, and that those people listened and they turned around. So here in the ancient books of prophets, of people who are able to recognize bad things happening, and then they told their people and they actually made a change. Those are the only two examples. And if we're not careful, our country, because it's happening, whether you guys believe it or not, those of you who don't believe in God, those of you who are part of organized religion that are very restricted of mind about God, there are obvious things happening that your knowledge base and your experience and your life, just the way the glasses that you wear, the things that you put over your eyes are filtering things so that you're not seeing the full picture. And the challenge is without seeing the full picture, you can't properly prepare. You don't know. And if you ignore things from people that you don't understand or you don't like or you think are weird, you're ignoring some of the most important information you can have, because the reason why we all have our various differences, we come from different places, the reason why we are all as we are, and the reason why we need diversity is so you can have not only a diversity of individuals and demographics, but so you can have a diversity of thought. And in that diversity of thought, there needs to be a healthy level of respect and curiosity that goes with that skepticism. But I feel in our world that we have far too much skepticism, not enough curiosity, and not enough respect for our fellow man to listen when they're complaining about a problem or letting you know or informing you about something. Which is super, super weird because we live in an age of social media where everything is available to you. You can see it all. You can listen to anything that you want. So the only way that you can remain ignorant or passive or apathetic is if you close your eyes to the things that are difficult to see, which is very frustrating for somebody like me. And I hate to say that because what is important to me is not necessarily what's important to you, nor should it be, nor am I expecting it to be. Likewise, I don't expect you to force me to care about things that you care about too. But this isn't about care. This is about us staying alive and maintaining a country. And for the Black population, African American population that I am obviously part of, it's even worse. It's even worse. Because for us, we know that whatever happens to this country is going to happen to us doubly if we don't respond and act and prepare. What's happening overseas could easily happen here, and we would be the first ones for it to happen to. So it's very unfortunate because when I think about the history of people who share my skin and blood, I already know that there's difficulty there from being ignorant and being forced to be ignorant. So it behooves of me not to be ignorant and not to accept passivity when information is being presented to me. Which is why I find it incredibly insulting to be and unfortunate to be surrounded by people who could care less about the challenges that are happening in the world. I find it personally reprehensible that I even have to share breath with people who don't take this life seriously and who are so willing to ignore obvious challenges that are about to be faced just because they want a couple more days of peace. They want a couple more days of quiet before those bombs or before that cyber attack or before those challenges of starvation or economic despair hits them. If you're in a car that's driving 100 miles an hour and your brakes are out and you see a cliff ahead of you and you're not concerned, that should be a concern for everybody else in that car that's driving with you, right? So that is the burden that I'm faced right now, is because, and also I think that there's a tinge of cultural relevance here. Like, and I've happened to live overseas, like a lot of my friends have, but I happen to live overseas in areas that have either previously been war torn or, are preparing for it, or it's still part of their psyche. It's still part of that. I've been places. And anywhere people have struggled in the past, they don't tend to keep their eyes closed. It seems to me that our country is we live in a place where it's been good for so long that we think it's not going to get bad. In the last 4 years, all of your goods have increased by 25%. Just in the last 4 years, just in the last year, it's been 4%. So from the previous year, which was like 6% of the previous year, and so on. So no matter how you spin it, there are challenges coming, even if you're not worried about anything else happening in the world, just about the economics. There are challenges coming that all of us will have to face at some point in time in the very near future. So, so this is the challenge, you know. All of the people that I respect, admire, and appreciate the most out of life were either extremely well educated people who could foresee things in the future, or from my holy books of the Quran and the Bible, in the Torah, the prophets who delivered messages of not only of peace and of prosperity and of a future to come, but also warnings. The curse of knowledge is is something that all of us should share equally, and it's something that all of us should, not the curse of knowledge, but the desire to go out and get knowledge, to seek it, and to improve ourselves in the station of those around us, should be something that, at least in my mind, is a part of my like code, is part of my value system. And it's challenging to me that I can't think of a reality where this is not like ubiquitous. Anyway, I'm digressing. Let me slightly change the subject and provide you with some definitions of some key terms so that you're aware of what I'm talking about. There is a concept of ignorance, and there's a concept of nescience. Ignorance is when I hand you a book or I give you information and you choose to ignore it or put it on a shelf and not even pay attention to it. It has no effect on you, but you know it's there. It's not being hidden from you. And then there's a concept of nescience. Nescience is spelled N-E and then science. Nescience means that information has been purposely taken from you, hidden and obscured so that you can't get to the truth. Unfortunately, in our world today, most of the information that you would need to make critical and good decisions is you're nescient from. You don't even know exist. So when people do come around to provide that information to you, you see that as a lot of people see that as they would say that's a conspiracy theory, or they would say, where did you get that knowledge, or prove it, when it's easily proven, easily seen. But nescience means something's been hidden from somebody has deliberately hidden something from you. And unfortunately, many of us are so used to a state of nescience that knowledge looks crazy to us, right? So while knowledge does look crazy to us, all of our lives we've been presented with information that alludes to it. People write about everything in history. There's thousands of libraries all over the world with books completely untouched and unread. So if something bad were to happen, we can't say we didn't know. Information was given to us. And if we didn't know the information, then so be it. We can't really be blamed. But that's the thing. And here's one of those God-fearing parts of me. No nation that's ever been destroyed was destroyed without giving warning. They could all see the alarm bells were going off, because if the alarm bells don't go off, you can't really be blamed. Then you'll find a way to piece it all together. But if the alarm bells are going off and you and your country are actively destroying itself, well, there's an opportunity for change. But many countries and communities don't do that. And here we are faced with an opportunity for change, that requires us to completely look at ourselves in the face and face the music. Unfortunately, as I'm learning, people do not want to look evil in the face and face the music, because when they look in the mirror when they're looking for evil and they look for evil out in the world, ultimately the finger points back at us for our lack of action, for our lack of understanding, for our lack of knowledge. And who can we blame when our country, when our government, when our lives fall apart, but ourselves? So here's the deal. We are the most apathetic and ignorant nation that I could ever imagine, from a nation of the most educated people to a nation of the most ignorant, apathetic people. People who can literally see children being bombed on a screen and say that's okay. People who will fight for, people who will say with one mouth in one way, no justice, no peace, but then would be willing to commit injustice on another. We have people who say they're all about life and love and peace and all of these things. But in order to enjoy your life and love with peace, you also have to have a strong and loving and peaceful community. But I do not see that within us. How could we maintain a great nation of any type of moral superiority when we ourselves are morally bankrupt? How can we export a culture to the rest of the world when we don't respect the rest of the world? How can we claim that we have the moral high ground and we deserve our station and our place in the world when we ourselves are, by and large, supporting that destruction around the world and have been doing it for so long that we think it's right? The time frame when people look out at the world and they say, I'm right, while also committing genocide and murder, and while also enforcing their politics, enforcing their standard, they're not representing the people at all. How can we look at these people and how can we look at ourselves in the face and not feel resentment and guilt and shame? How can we send, how can we knowingly right now, I have an 8-year-old son and a 3-year-old son, and almost all of my friends have children. Everybody who has children should be concerned with this. How can you knowingly involve and allow what is happening in the world to continue to happen, knowing that your children are going to have to go overseas in less than 10 years, between 5 to 15 years? Your children will be going over and your children will be dying to defend something that is fucking wrong. And there is no recourse. There's no opportunity for change unless we're willing to face the facts, unless we're willing to sit back and face the music of our own nature. It's sorry, I'm expressing frustration, and I'm doing it live because, well, what else am I going to do? My workday's over. I have nobody to talk to about anything that's important, but I'm constantly bombarded on social media. I can't even go on my social media and scroll for 2 minutes without seeing a child dead. I can't, and I'm not looking for it. I can't go to my social media for more than 5 minutes without seeing something, some like travesty, some like natural disaster happening in the world, and knowing that I have friends in those locations that I can't help. And that we are sending our tax dollars over for killing when we could be spending our tax dollars on saving lives and helping people rebuild their lives. And then the other thing is my soul will not allow me just to ignore it and just go away. My soul, my actual spirit will not allow me not to think about it. It will not shut up. It just keeps talking to me and telling me to open my mouth. Because what I see is very obvious. In the coming years, when our own people are suffering through natural disasters and are starving, and we don't have electricity, and we don't have an internet anymore, and nobody can reach out to the regular public to complain, we're going to feel like people in our country will not have a leg to stand on in a number of years if we ever have to go through a situation, or we ever do to ourselves what is happening to the Palestinians. And also, like, I want you to think about something real quick. For all of you people who are not Zionist, and who are not, let's just say you're not part of the chosen people. What if it's happening there? What do you think? What do you think is going to happen here? How is this any different from what the Nazis were doing? You guys are going to have to explain this to me one day. You're going to one day, you're all going to have to explain that to me, because to me, they look exactly the same. And if one was wrong, then the other one's wrong, regardless of what group's doing it. But ultimately, I know that God is judge and God is master of all things, and all of us are just playing our parts. And I will continue to play my part. So so here's the deal. Like if you all even have an inkling of love for the Most High in your hearts, or inkling of love for humanity, you will pay attention. You will pay attention to the injustices that are happening, and you will do something about it, even if it's opening your mouth on a camera, because that's all you can do. I can't go fight wars. I can't jeopardize my children's lives I can't fight wars in another country. I can't jeopardize my children's lives and stop working and doing something reckless. I am a 40-year-old man, has goals, who has things to live for, who has a God to serve. I can't just throw my life away into a fodder, especially when I believe that my voice is more powerful, or my pen is more powerful than any gun I could possibly carry. So I believe that if you have a challenge, or if you have a problem with what's happening, you need to open up your mouths. And if you think that what is happening is okay, you need to too open up your mouths and give your reason why. But also, like, suffer the consequence. Like, all of us have to suffer the consequences of our words and actions, right? So obviously, even our country is going to have to suffer at some point in time the consequences of our actions too. You think God's going to let this pass? You think corrupting and destroying life that was given to us is a good thing? Crazy. Absolutely bonkers. We live in a bizarro world. We live in a bizarro world. And at some point in time, all of us are going to have to answer for what we do and what we don't do, how we feel and what we don't feel, apathetically. You may believe it or not, but at some point in time, you're going to have to face your maker. You're going to have to stand there, and you're going to have to suffer the consequences of the life that you lived. All of us will. And whether you believe it or not doesn't matter. Even if it just doesn't matter. So, like, my challenge and my request is that I don't know who, I don't even know who's watching this or reaching this. I don't care if it's zero. I just don't care anymore. I just don't care anymore. If you have an idea of how the world can be a better place and you're not doing something about it, if you know what is happening around you is unjust, you're not doing a better thing about it. We got problems, dude. We got problems. Look, there are active people in every community around you who are actively sex trafficking children. Actively. We know it's a thing. There are people who are actively trafficking drugs in your community. We know it's a thing. There are people actively contributing to the death and destruction of other people in the world, actively. And all of us are just sitting around like everything is cool. It's so difficult for me to go to, like, I can go to a chamber of commerce meeting and smile and shake hands, or business meetings, and work all day and deal with people all day long. And all day long, my thoughts are, how many more children are going to die in the name of the glory of another group of people? How many more people are going to lie about God in order to control, dominate, and destroy the world? How long are we going to allow corruption to literally lead us, and then complain about the corruption, but then not do anything about it? We don't have a new political party. We don't have people running for office that are worth a damn. We have people who are in office, but they're playing the same game, the Democrat Republican game, and we all hate it. We're tired of the division. We want somebody that's down the center. We want common sense. We want a true American. We want leadership. But as soon as you get the opportunity to have those people, they're gone. They either disappeared somewhere, or you never hear from them because they're relegated down to a third party or something else. And we're not doing anything to vote for those parties. So here we are, more elections coming up, more changes, even more changes need to happen, and nobody's doing anything about it because they feel helpless and hopeless and apathetic, and mostly because they're closing their eyes and they're not looking for historical examples of how it worked, ways of operating in order to be effective and win, a way of strategically aligning and planning yourself in order to successfully win. And there's other books over there too. This one's about business, but there's many others. And we don't carry with us a warrior spirit that fights for righteousness, goodness, justice, and the Almighty. So many people want to fight for money, mammon, that's their God, or power, that's their God, or safety, that's their God, or peace, that's their God, not realizing that all of the things that everybody wants you could have if you just committed yourself to the actual God, and that you just stopped allowing yourselves to be controlled by people who think they're God in a world that is full of godlessness, in order to serve God in the best way so that you can actually obtain all of the blessings that come with not being cursed, but the blessings of belief, the blessings of faith, the blessings of action, the blessings of courage, the blessings of the warrior who's willing to fight for that which they believe in. How many people are willing to fight for that which they believe in? So few. Slightest bit of uncomfort, we run and we flee and we start trying to figure out ways out of our discomfort. It's my Marine buddies, my military friends, a lot of us are hardened by experience and hardened by life a little bit. And there's this thing that goes around where we say, some of us, not I, but some of us believe that everyone should at least serve in the military so that they can have that experience of like needing to wake up and like and gain some courage and have a warrior spirit. But it's not for everybody. It's not. I believe we all should certainly contribute to our community and volunteer in a way, or be compelled in order to vote or something to have this stuff. But that's not. That's neither here nor there. The reason why I say that is because the people who I know are willing to fight for what's right are the people who have served and the people who continue to serve after their service is over, their military service is over, because our service doesn't end. Now, here's the deal. We are doing ourselves an incredible disservice by remaining apathetic, remaining ignorant, and keeping our mouths shut when we see things are obviously wrong. I guarantee if you saw a child on the street being abused by a stranger, you would do something about it. I guarantee if you saw a dog, because I've done this and people around me did this in downtown Frederick just a week ago, we see a dog running around, we'll try to give it a snack, we try to give it a food, we'll try to rescue it and take it back to its owner. If you saw somebody on the street right now who needed $5, I'm sure you'd give it if you had it. And if you saw somebody out in the street who needed help picking up a box, or just needed a warm, encouraging word, or just something else, I know you would do it. So how could you not do it on a grander scale? What is the difference between doing it for your fellow man on the street and doing it for 1,000 Palestinian children dying by bombs that we literally paid for? Why can't you do that? Why can't you do it? Why can't you advocate for the war in Ukraine to stop? You're supporting Ukraine. You're flying all those flags out here, but you're not trying to get that to stop happening to those children and those women that are there, and all of the men. Like 60% of their men are just gone. Like, okay, yeah, let's just keep doing that. We're not talking about not continuing to send our money overseas to places that are literally pocketing the money, buying war things, and then leveraging that to destroy people in their communities. We're not talking about the slaughters that are happening in Africa. We're not trying to help out with that. We're barely supporting our own people in North Carolina. We're barely supporting our own people in Florida. All of these things are just me highlighting that there is something afoot. There's something wrong with all of this, and it stinks. It's terrible. It's absolutely corrupt. It is. If anybody from 1960 to 1990 lived at was an adult and got picked up out of their time frame and dropped into this time frame, you would automatically consider this a dystopia, a terrible dystopia, a dystopia that nobody would want to live in. I have 4 or 5 YouTube videos of various random people that I discovered on YouTube who have left the country, and they're explaining why. Now, this is coming from somebody who was living out of the country and came back reluctantly right after COVID, only because I needed to be here to make sure that my father was buried, to make sure that my son was born, and to be there to support my mom when she died. And now a lot of the most important people in my life are gone. And so I'm going to advocate for additional important people, because I didn't come back home to just be comfortable and be at peace and be happy and just keep my head in the sand and not recognize what's going on in the world. I made a commitment to all of you all, every single person in our country, that I would defend our country from enemies, foreign and domestic. Did my oath somehow go away? No. So all of you military guys who are out there doing your thing, you two are culpable, and you two have a responsibility and a duty to take care of business and open up your freaking mouths. And if you agree with what's happening, open up your mouth so we can hear it. Let's hear your rationale. Additionally, all you school teachers out there, you have a duty. All you principals, all you business leaders, all you political leaders, all all of us have a duty, and none of us should be allowing any of the corruption, but we are. And it's festering at the seed of our political parties. It festers at the seed of our communities. So if you have a mold or a bacteria or something in your life or surrounding you that is choking you off from air and oxygen and from the ability to grow and thrive and survive, and they hit that sunlight and get fresh, get water and help in an environment that cultivates your growth. If you are surrounded by corruption as mold that is preventing this growth, it behooves of you to ensure that that goes away. But again, you have to be willing to accept the curse of knowledge, because with that knowledge comes the ability to take action and to get active, and with activity, and then you take that hope and you turn it into faith. And then if you have faith and you have a lot of action and you have a plan with a bunch of other people and you have opportunities, now you have a strong community who's capable of changing the entire world. But no, no. It's not going to happen, because my people are too scared to do anything about it, because we've been indoctrinated to just shut up and just be and just allow our culture to just rot us from the inside. And all the rest of you guys out there who are apathetic, like if you happen to be this color, yeah, the world looked pretty good to you for a long time. Looked pretty good for a long time, but now it's not starting to look so good, and you can't blame it on anybody else. None of us can blame any of the things that are happening on anybody else, because we are allowing it to happen. It's absolutely infuriating. How much long? 45 minutes of me talking nonsense? Sure, whatever. I'll keep going too. I don't care. Very frustrated, guys. I'm over here considering, like, I'm speaking freely right now and alive, but since 2016. 2016, I ran for Congress just to see if I can do it. I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to see if there was a path, if there was a way towards victory. And I discovered that there is a possibility, there is a path, there is a way. And it's coming up very soon. Not this election, but the next election, there will be opportunities. There's opportunities for new political parties. But before any of that stuff can happen, before I'm even willing to put my life on the line like that, I need to know that that other people are seeing the world this way. Because if they're not, then I'm wasting my time, and I just need to warn and go the fuck away, right? There are countless examples, and I go back to the Bible and the Quran. There are countless examples of people who have gone to their nations and they said, hey, Noah, for instance, hey, I'm building a big boat. I feel like a flood's coming. And then it comes, and then all but 5 or 6 or so perish. Or let's say there's others. There's a lot of others, a lot. Hey, you guys should probably change, but you're not going to change. Here comes the destruction. Rome even. Hey, Rome, you're probably not changing. Here comes your destruction, or your transformation into a church. At any rate, every single nation faces this time. There's a book written called The Fourth Turning, and it talks about the cycles of nations, specifically the American nation, and talks about each generation and what each of those generations has to contribute and what they'll be turned into. And the book has been like, this is one of those things I'm talking about. Remember I was talking about like the curse of knowledge, and people will put out knowledge and they'll put it out there, and all you have to do is read it or tap into it, and then you have access to it, and you can merge it and synchronize it and synthesize it with other knowledge. Here's one for you, a book called The Fourth Turning. Look into it. It'll tell you exactly what's happening now, and they anticipated it in 1998. They outlined all the things. There's videos of the guy now. One of the authors passed, but there's another author. He goes on YouTube now. He talks about it all the time. The COVID disaster. They predicted it, not directly. They didn't say, oh, COVID's going to happen, but they say it could be anything, a natural disaster. It could be a biological thing, and they acknowledged that, and it happened. But the reason why they said it is they are acknowledging that our millennial generation was a generation that was either going to witness the destruction of our country or was going to accept the need for change and make radical change. So here we are, 2024. We're 2 years away from what I think is absolute chaos, maybe 5 years max from absolute chaos and pandemonium. And we have a very small little window to actually do something about it. But in order to do something about it, you have to be informed. You have to know the risk. You have to know the challenges. You have to be able to work together and figure and strategize a plan, and then figure out the roles and responsibilities of people who get to it. And then you have to go and get to it. But you can't be scared. We can't be scared to open our mouths live. You can't be scared to talk to your neighbor, and you can't be scared to offend a couple people who simply want to keep their heads in the sand and ignore what's happening around them because their life and their world is full of destruction. You don't want to be the 80-year-old person, and I'm talking to all of you guys who are about 63 to 80 or 63 to 70. You don't want to be the 80-year-old person who's suffering and starving out in the streets because everything that you ever worked for was destroyed because our country fell apart, and you have no social security, you have no food, you have no shelter, no community, no protection, and no provisions whatsoever, and no ability to respond to an emergency. God forbid. Like none of us want that. None of us want that. But the only way to prevent that is to do something about it now. The only reason you would do something about it now is if you knew it was a risk. And the only way you're going to know it was a risk if you actually listen to people who are telling you bad shit is happening, and you open up your freaking eyes and you deal with it. Running from your problems, running from our problems as a nation, as a country, as a subculture, as multitudes, is not going to make the problem go away. It's only going to exacerbate the problem and make you less capable, because you're going to be older and less capable, or you'll be younger and uninformed and less capable. Both the young people are incapable, and the old ignorant people who allow themselves to age without confronting the challenge and not preparing for it will not be able to respond. Some of us in our age range and demographic might survive whatever comes, but who knows? We don't even know what the risk is because we're uninformed. We are at the precipice of World War III, and we are at the precipice of a fall of our country. We are clearly in economic straits, and we are marching off of the cliff without anybody saying anything to anybody else around them, and it is crazy to me. It is absolutely crazy to me. So for me to spend the last 20 years of my life researching chem bio response and war strategy and the Middle East and North Africa and religion and cybersecurity and national security, to see all of these things converge at the same time into like warning bells should be going off in all of your heads. Okay. That's all I wanted to say. I accept the burden and the curse of knowledge because without it, I have no hope to improve myself or the world. If without the burden of knowledge, neither do you. Without making a conscious choice to actually go out and learn and open up your eyes and take off your rose-colored glasses, you're not going to learn anything. And take it from me. If you are hearing this, and this sounds even remotely uncomfortable to you, you are wearing glasses that are rose-colored. And if you hear this and you understand this and you can think this and articulate this and you understand what I'm saying and you get it, it's time for you to too open up your mouth. And it's time for you to start working with people around you who get it. Because those of us who will survive are those of us who are going to be willing to open up our mouths and open up our eyes and deal with the intolerable now, so that we're not surprised when we see crazy stuff happen in the future. These. The very idea that we have so many of us who are willing to advocate for the death and destruction of other people means that it's a sure sign that we deserve it ourselves. And I do not like saying that with my mouth. Back in the day when Barack Obama was running, there was a pastor. His name was Elijah Wright. And Elijah Wright was scrutinized for saying that the chickens were coming home to roost for America. And everybody scrutinized him because people did not want to believe that America could be scrutinized for the things we've done. Like, you have to look at America as a whole, right? You have to look at it as a whole. Destruction of Native Americans, taking over of land, slavery, women's suffrage, and that whole situation, and then exporting our culture overseas, destroying us, and then literally being involved with every conflict, manipulating every economy, taking over the entire world, and then instead of doing what is right by the world and leading it into a future with hope and faith and empowerment of all people, we have chosen to tamp down and control. And I am a part of a group of people who are tamped down and control. And there are thousands of books like this who explain to us exactly how it happened to us. And I have tens of books just on my bookshelf right there that will describe what happened in the entire world by us. The question is, how would you, if you were God, judge our nation? And if that judgment would be a bit harsh, how would you, as a member of our society and community, support the improvement and upliftment and empowerment of the people in order to change that direction? This is a question I leave for you. Now, I have other things to do. I've already spent 55 minutes word vomiting on all of you, and I appreciate even a 10-second listen. And for those of you who are watching, there's 3 of you who are watching, thank you very much. And for all of the rest of you, thank you very much. I appreciate all your time and energy. If I die today, I will be happy knowing that I serve my God, I serve my country, I serve my fellow mankind. I do not have an ounce of hate for good people who aren't killing other people. I have been a great dad and I love my children. I have tried to be a great spouse. I have tried to be a great son. I think I've done that, and a great grandson, and many other things. I don't have any regrets, and I especially don't regret anything I've said here because we are the baddies. I hope you have an outstanding day. Peace and blessings, my friends.